Greetings, everyone. This is the Hipster Snack bringing you today another episode of the Tomodachi Bros podcast. And with me today is my good friend, Master Ditaku.
Yes. I am a master, but I don't know what a master of.
You
I'm a...
and you're a Pugum master, obviously.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
You're a master of yourself and your environment and stealing everything in that environment.
It is a hard life, but it's not a life I chose. It's a life I found in somebody else's pocket.
that washes. So today, we are going to talk about games that one plays on top of a table.
You mean like a Game Boy?
No, Jimmy, no. Also, no. We're talking about...
Also no.
First of all, no. Second of all, no. That's a Homestar Runner reference. We're going to be talking about dice and paper games. We are going to talk about opening books and then opening your mind and visualizing an object in three-dimensional space and being able to rotate it in your mind's eye. That last one's a little negotiable, but it helps. So, tabletop gaming. Let's start with the big one. Let's get the big one out of the way. Let's talk about D&D for a minute, because it was my gateway drug. It was the first tabletop I ever played. I was in middle school, and I think it was AD&D. So I remember back then, like, it was that build where everything had a million stipulations tied to it. It's like, if you are playing X race, you can't play Y, Z, or A classes. And it's like, why? Screw you. That's why.
Because Gary Gygax had a weird, boner for being kind of just unpleasant in terms of mechanics.
Yeah.
And I hear he was a fine, excellent game master, but I mean, look at old AD&D and tell me that this was not player hostile, because it's extremely player hostile.
It is. It absolutely is. And one of the funny things is I played an Elven Ranger, and I learned later, I'm fairly certain, I haven't proven this, but someone mentioned, it's like, I think only females can be Elven Rangers. And I'm like, why? Screw AD&D. It was just kind of it was a one-player dungeon crawl kind of story. It was like a one-off, but it was enough to get me interested. About a year later is when I moved on to other games. But D&D was the first for me. So what about you, Ditaku? What was your first Dungeons and the Dragons?
Actually, no, it wasn't.
Oh.
And this is going to shock you and make you laugh uproariously.
Okay.
Because of the irony. My very first one was Werewolf the Apocalypse.
No, please. No, please. Tell me all about your Black Spiral Dancer waifu. I cannot wait to hear this.
Actually, I didn't get into that because basically I was like, I was trying to wrap my head around what an RPG was.
Right.
So basically he spent 4 hours making characters, and I was like, okay, I think I understand. And he's like, well, I gotta go home now. But it sounded really cool in my head, and I was like, oh yeah, I could turn into a werewolf, and it would be really cool. And my character was not a waifu. It was basically just an XP for me, little Ditaku.
Yeah, but your first character in these sort of things almost always is. So, like, I think that's acceptable. The only thing that I append to the asterisk of, you can start with that, but don't stay with that. Grow out from there and embrace other ideas. It's a little pro tip for all you nooblets out there.
All the chillins.
That's right. your chillins with your 5 E's and your 4 E's. I'll be honest.
They're moving on to 6E now, and I'm like, oh,
it's been a few years, so like fine. I can't grouse too much. My favorite tabletop's on its 6th iteration, and it started back in the 80s, so it's whatever. That said, yeah, I got into tabletop gaming late middle school, and our good buddy Cog and another friend who I have fallen out of contact with since, we got into Old World of Derpness, specifically Vampire the Masquerade. Though my gateway drug for that was Vampire the Masquerade Redemption.
Which is excellent game.
It is.
Very shame it doesn't run on modern computers.
It runs, but you gotta do a lot of finagling. I was surprised I got it to run for the review I did a few years ago, and even then, I could get the biggest screen render to be like 25% of my monitor. And I'm like, yeah, okay, this is fine, I guess. Really great game, though. I loved Redemption. It was such a good game. It's also probably what makes me the Bruja fanboy I am today. So, yeah. But yeah, no, I played Redemption, and then we found a GM. Guy was a little bit of a D-bag, but he was a fair GM, so I can't complain overly much. Cog and our friend and I, we had a really good circle. I had a Bruja. Cog played a Tremere who was following Path of Flame, and our buddy was our Malkavian. And he was intensely paranoid that the BBC was attempting to read his thoughts. And when we asked for more details on that, he refused to elaborate. He was...
so basically you were playing with male Styx the Badger.
Yeah, basically. Like a leaner Alex Jones, basically.
It's funny is that is entirely within setting for what you call it.
Yeah, it totally is. We didn't know how good we were at it until later.
No, I'm just saying it's entirely in setting with World of Darkness because the entire thing with the worm is it like slowly trying to destroy nature through society.
Yeah.
And it would actually like slowly corrupt people through civilization, which honestly I think was kind of done very ham-handedly. But, it was the 90s.
Yeah.
We haven't really gotten away from it. Fern Gully was a thing that still
was a thing that existed. That is fair to say.
Can I just say, have we like seriously not moved on from like giant thing destroys the rainforest? Is that or is there like some kind of new like terror that they're using against us now?
I don't go to the movies like I used to. It's like $15 for a matinee, so it's like I don't keep up with pop culture.
No, I'm just thinking in terms of like, what's the big thing that's going to kill us now?
Yeah, no, they're still pretty much on about that.
Is it the plastics island ocean that's like no one can ever seem to get a picture of?
Nah. Shrug. It's just general ZOMG to carbon footprint. That was an ad campaign by British Petroleum trying to move the onus of environmental responsibility to the consumer rather than big megacorps. Do your research on these things. That said,
never mind the fact that the vast majority of carbon, that sort of thing, is done not in Western nations. It's done in India and China, but no one ever talks about that.
Yeah, not supposed to bring that one up. Anyhow. No, ours was a good circle. I was the muscle, Cog was the magic, and our Malkavian, weirdly enough, was the face of our group, which tells you just how antisocial the other two characters were.
Is this the part where we, explain that our podcast is, being supported by the Camarilla?
we were very pro Cammy. It's like, it's not that the anarchists don't have fair points, but anarchism is a meme at best and not a particularly good one.
Real anarchism has never been tried, guys.
Yeah, and some form of government would still form. Spoiler alert. So one of our favorite missions, and this will stick with me to my dying day, we had to infiltrate a Giovanni warehouse because they were smuggling some old artifacts from the old world that were dangerously high level, but at the same time, the Camarilla couldn't afford to send actually important people. They needed someone who was deniable. So they sent us. And
are you sure that your GM didn't literally play Bloodlines? Because I'm pretty sure that was a late level.
I don't think Bloodlines existed yet. I think that was before that game was made. So we went through and we killed like a lot of mans because Giovanni were one of our favorite targets because we just really hate Giovanni. We have every reason to hate Giovanni.
The irony of the Giovanni being the last branch of one of your favorite clans.
Yeah, but they only got that through Diablerie, so I have no reason to show them any mercy. It was actually a common headcanon that some small sects of proper Cappadocians were still around at the time, but they were pretty much had to be in hiding at all times because, well, we were playing in New York City, and Giovanni basically owned that city. So, yeah, sucks.
According to the 20th anniversary version, there not only were actually enclaves of Cappadocians still around, but there literally were zombie Cappadocians that walked out of the underworld because they were basically zombie ghost vampires that were animated by their own necromancy and their own hatred of the Giovannis to the point that they joined the Sabbat not to destroy the antediluvians, but specifically to kill any Giovanni they could.
Based.
Yes.
And
I agree.
We went to this compound, pretty much wrecked everyone inside, and pretty much opened the path for the rest of the Camarilla's important guys to come in and do their thing. So we're like, okay, we got to get out of here. But now there's like civilians outside. There's police encircling the building. It's going to be a bloodbath. We try to go out the way we came. So it's like, oh, wait a minute. We'll go through the sewers. The sewers belong to the Nosferatu, and they're on our side. So we can just cut through the sewers and we'll be fine. And so we start down, and everything seems to be going okay until our GM decided to take a page out of Redemption's book and send a giant mutant albino alligator after us. That sucked. We had to basically deliberately blow a gas line to get this thing off of us because it was so stupidly strong. And we were like, okay, I'm going to throw my lighter, and we just have to like bail out of this water drainage pipe and basically hope that we land somewhere safe. So he's like, okay, you can do that, but you're going to draw a lot of attention to yourself. So you're going to have to do an athletics check and then a stealth check on top of it. And I was like, crap, okay, that's not one of my specialties, but I'm going to give it a go. I rolled just enough. Cog rolled just enough. Our Malkavian succeeded at the athletics check and botched for the stealth roll. So he just flies out of the tube, he lands on the beach sand, gets up, and it's like, hey, everybody, I'm over here! Ensuing a Benny Hill-inspired chase sequence. It was beautiful in the chaos that ensued.
I don't know. You know what? I'm not such a bad GM anymore after that, huh? I never required you guys to do that.
No, that is true facts. That is true facts. After that, there was a lull in our tabletopping. But come college, I had the opportunity to join a little group, whereupon I learned about the joys of D&D 3.5. 3.5 is crunchy as all get out. There is so much side content in 3.5.
That's basically because it was the system for like 8 years.
Yes,
and so it had a
system.
Lot. I mean, it is a system. It's the first version D&D I ever played.
I would argue it's the best that D&D has ever been. I think it was the right balance between lethality and being able to tank a hit. Because like tanks could actually tank and not just like explode into giblets the instant something hit them. And we had a good party. I'm trying to remember. I was a dwarven warrior. We had a null rogue who decided the entire time he would speak in character, he did the Scooby-Doo voice. And to this day, I cannot shake my association. So every time I'm like thinking of a Knoll speaking, I hear the Scooby-Doo voice the entire time. And he was good at it. He was actually very good at it. We had an elf wizard who had a really bad tendency to just never get good rolls. Just ever. That was a tragedy.
That too, huh?
Yep. He had the bad dice luck. He never could roll to save his life. Somehow he survived. I don't know how though. maybe higher powers really do favor the helpless. And we had
unlike ours,
where our wizard blew himself up.
Yes.
Yeah. I think we had a cleric. I forget what they were. He didn't really contribute very much. He was kind of the quiet one of our circle. And that game got zany because I actually joined after the game had already started. So I did not see some context. But I know one of the things that did happen was there was a local noble who had sent them out on a quest to help retrieve a stolen artifact. And they did so, and it turns out he was the one who stole the artifact in the first place, and it was the rightful owners trying to get it back because he undid the seal on these weird ancient... Basically, they were like terracotta soldiers, but like super powerful terracotta soldiers. And the amulet controlled them, and we had to like run about 3 towns over to get away from this guy's influence. And pretty much for the rest of the game, everything we did was done with the sole purpose of, okay, how are we going to kill this one guy? We need to kill this one guy, and we are not going to rest until we killed him and smash that stupid amulet.
Petty, player character. Oh, it's brilliant.
I think that was largely the glue that held the party together because we were pretty dysfunctional. Everyone kind of had an axe to grind, so to speak, but like we ended up becoming friends because we had enough mutual enemies that were like, okay, you're okay. I'll work with you. But that guy over there, we need to kill that guy. And then we never got to finish out the campaign. Alas, the story remains incomplete. But we spent a lot of time scheming to kill that one guy. And then D&D 4E happened, and it made it so that the players just never die. There's like no fangs in 4E.
I tried to like 4E like a number of times, but like every single time I'm like, why does every character feel the same?
Yeah, they all serve the same basic role, and everyone's basically a tank sweeper, and it's like, nothing's different, and you just can't die. There's nothing in the game that can challenge a player character in that system. 5e is a little better in that respect. 5e is okay. You know?
I'm sorry, my doodle's here, and you're like, yeah, there's nothing that can kill a character, and you just went, I'm like, yeah, little dude, I feel that.
I feel that in my soul. Now, 5e was better. Our 5e game was pretty good. You guys can look up the Tabletopchi talks for that. Good stuff. But eventually we branched out into lots and lots and lots of other systems. I've been talking for a while. Ditaku, why don't you take the next one?
Well, you see, I'm surprised you didn't talk about our freeform game.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot.
Honestly, I think the coolest. There was a while that we kind of did a freeform thing, which actually we kind of built rules for it as we went. And one of the things that I thought was the coolest bit was we basically built up this system whereupon basically it would be you would declare your action, usually some sort of attack or task that you wanted it to do. You would roll, the GM would roll, and whoever basically got the higher roll, we were using a bunch of D20s because we are all a bunch of shameless nerds, would actually succeed. And the cool thing was, though, is that, and this kind of came up later, was you could forego your defensive action. You just forego your defensive roll and go, I'm going to counter. And counters became increasingly overpowered basically because the understanding was that if you were to fail the counter, then you would just take a huge amount of damage.
Yep.
And so they were ridiculously overpowered as a consequence. And I recall a number of battles ending because of how overpowered these counters were.
Yep. If you countered, you gave up any form of defense, so there was no dodging or soaking. You just took what the attack was. But that went both ways, and if you countered, you basically just interrupted the other turn completely and just got a free attack of your own. And there was no defense roll against a counter because of the high stakes behind the counter. So, yeah, counterplay was just a huge part of combat.
The closest I could think of is, and this is kind of a thing, is an high-level technical Dead or Alive play, like characters like Neo Tengu, who can just, you attack her and she's just like, no, and just grabs your arm and deals her own attack with that.
Oh yeah, no, any character can do that. You just have to have really good timing.
Yeah. I know Neo Tengu is really, really good at that sort of counterplay, but
yeah, she is.
Yeah, it's just that sort of thing is, and on top of that, the fact that the entire thing is basically based off of anime and cartoons that we liked from that period.
Yep.
And so there's kind of a fourth wall as to we actually were being watched by other people. And so if you did better, then more people would tune into us and we would actually gain more power. Or if we started goofing off or doing poorly, then people would, turn away or stop tuning in. And so we would not get them their support.
Admittedly, I kind of cribbed that from Paper Mario and the Thousand-Year Door, but it worked really well for the setting. And funny enough, Chroma Squad would do something similar many years later.
Yes, honestly, I thought it was really cool, and it did kind of shape the entire we were basically in a living cartoon, even to the point that effectively the fact that we could just basically shrug off or we could recover from wounds so much quicker than regular people was effectively just because we're we're just cartoons.
Yeah, we're the main characters of cartoons. So the next episode, basically it's the equivalent of D&D's long rest. We're just yeah, that's gone. We're already over it.
Yeah. In fact, this was actually about the time I want to say that we were starting to get into JoJo.
Yep.
And so we just joked because something we kind of noticed in the middle of around part 3 was the fact that Jotaro would just get completely destroyed in one fight, and then like the next chapter, he's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm good.
I'm perfectly fine."
So, yeah, so we basically just started pulling that. We're like, "It's okay, guys. This is the next chapter."
Didn't you just have a fountain pen stuffed halfway through your cheek? No, don't worry. It's the next chapter now. That's gone now.
It's all right. I have extremely high dexterity and precision. What does that have to do with healing? So, yeah. Honestly, I don't know. It was really, really good. It's a shame that it just kind of ended, but that's what happens when you get, a library dropped on you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cog.
Yeah.
Thanks,
yeah. Let's talk about that, because that will stick with me until I die as well. We borrowed very liberally from other sources, and Cog is like, "Guys, do you know about Kashian?" And I was like, "I know of." He's like, "Oh, well, he's like this super cyborg, superhuman, post-apocalypse killing robot story." And we're like, "Neat." And he's like, "Okay, so," and by the way, we were taking turns on being GM, so the story was very twisty-turny, roundabout, and yeah, we pretty much did whatever the heck we felt like at the time. We went to this ancient library. It was supposedly there for like at least 2,000 or 3,000 years, and it contained basically a copy of every book written in that time. So these library bookshelves are like stories and stories tall. And like how you'd even navigate this place, you'd basically just have to be able to fly, basically. And Cog, as we're going through this library, is like, "Oh, this strange metallic man in a white suit appears before you and challenges you to a battle to the death." And during the fight, he sets the library on fire. So everything is burning pretty much floor to ceiling, and the ceiling's very high. And this dude, not Kashan, just starts knocking bookshelves over on top of us. So we're taking huge damage, and we have to like keep like making rolls to just shove the burning books and wood and debris off of us to continue running for our lives. I don't know how we survived that.
I had a Gundam.
Basically. Oh, that's right. You were a mecha pilot. That's right.
Yeah. I had a Gundam, and basically I was just tanking the entire thing, and he was like trying to knock me over, and I'm like, no, I'm getting out of here.
And I pretty much just got to follow in your wake, as I recall. It's like that. So the burning library incident is one of those tabletop moments that went down in infamy, because we were just like, holy crap, we barely pulled that one off.
Yep.
We never even beat not Cash Aaron. We just had to run for it.
Yeah, if anything, he actually got tired of kicking our butts, because eventually he just kind of was like, I beat you guys. I'm going to leave now.
I'm over like, it. Oh. And he just left. And we're just like, oh, thank God, he lost interest.
Well, technically, that means we win. Yeah, so... that being said, I mean, honestly, at that point, I moved to the other side of the country.
And Cog went off to college.
And that's basically when, the gang kind of broke up, unfortunately. But that was also the point that I really got into Exalted. I actually discovered Vampire the Masquerade myself. And kind of became the grognard that you know and love today.
Yep. Yeah, we got split up for a little while, but we ended up getting the band back together a couple years later. And Dutako was like, "Hey, I found this thing. It's called Exalted. Do you wish to play?" And I was like, I guess. And he's like, "It's basically just everyone is like a demigod, and they have huge kung fu battles." And I'm like, "All right, I'm on board."
Oh, yeah, by the way, it uses the same system as Vampire. And you're like, oh, okay.
Oh, okay, so this should be easy. Then I looked at the charm system and went, holy crap, this is not easy.
And I'm like, yes, isn't it great? Isn't it great?
He says with that Pugum grin on his face.
The thing is if the system is not 300 pages and like has a incredibly granular, incredibly complex power system, I ain't interested. And this is why I love Dragoning and why no one will play it with me.
No, you know what? I think that should be the next one we do. Is like our most recent Exalt game kind of fizzled out. The Shadowrun game kind of fizzled out. It's like, you know what we need? We need Dungeons the Dragoning. I think that's the spark that's going to get things going, and I think that would even get a Ranger back in with us. I think if we did that, because he had a character ready to go from a past game, and I think he'd be happy to revive him. So I think that should be the next one. We'll talk about that after the podcast. We'll put that idea out before Clockwork and the others.
No, I just don't like the fact that every single time I was trying to do something, Clockwork was like, no, that's not what I said. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure that's what you said. And I'm pretty sure you just edited it. But okay, fine.
Yeah, well,
okay. Which is kind of my issue with Exalted. I was like, I had an idea of what I was going to do, and he kept just like, no. I'm like, dude, come on, man.
And we got a Ranger back in, and we had like multiple people. I think it would flow more naturally. I think, and that's the downside to small parties is you get hesitation and main character syndrome with really, really small parties.
Well, I just kind of roll with it. If nobody else is going to do anything, might as well just, be like, I'm awesome.
That's right. Or in my case, you pose over a car because that's what hot blonde girls do, apparently. That was hysterical. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, there's the card. It's like, okay, so you have the hot blonde girl. Yeah. All right. Now you have to make a roll. Roll against what? A roll against, just bending over and just posing really sexily over this strange machine.
Yeah,
all right. You fail. I somehow feel compelled to lounge on this vehicle. Holy cow, I want one now.
I mean, I did deliberately make her attractive, so I can't argue with results. Yeah, you know what? I'll extend an olive branch here, Master Ditaku, and this will be recorded for the world to hear. You kick off a Dungeons the Dragoning game, and we'll rope a Ranger and Clockwork, and maybe even Cog into it. And if you do that, I'll finally get off my sneaky butt and launch a Log Horizon game.
For reasons.
I will do it, and we'll be on the American server and everything.
Wow, that means I get to play a buccaneer. That literally is just a samurai, but apparently you have a long sword instead of a katana.
Yep. Buccaneers are cool, though, because they get swag.
Yeah, they get cool tricorn hats, and, you get cool coats and stuff.
Yep. They're the swag mage.
If we do that, though, we should try and get Noodle interested, because I know he had ideas for his character he wanted to do.
Yeah, I'll ping him, too. Plus, I have the books. I can send them to anyone who needs them. And another book I want to talk about, and this one was actually brought to my attention as there's getting a revival of a Palladium book. And if you at home are going, what the heck is Palladium? Well, you're in good company, because most people haven't heard of them. Palladium is old school.
They were big in the 90s, as I understand it, because of Rifts. And I like the conceit of Rifts. The problem is that Rifts is 90s as heck.
It is.
For all the wrong reasons.
It is really complex. It takes a long time to build a character, and it's hyper lethal. You will spend 4 hours making a character who will survive 30 minutes. Now, among the Palladium books, the entire idea behind Rifts was you could have an infinite number of source books to draw upon, and the system would continue playing in roughly the same power level across every single book. Notable among these Palladium books was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness, which was obviously a TMNT themed tabletop book that came out in 1985. So it actually predates the 87 series and a lot of the conventions that we take for granted about the Turtles to this day. So thanks to Rizia the Seeker for drawing this to my attention, but there is now currently a Kickstarter for a relaunch of the book. It's going to be the same system. It's still Rifts, so don't think this is like a brand new system. But they have...
Which is what I was asking when you brought it to my attention, because you're like, oh, hey, look, they're bringing back TMNT and Other Strangeness. I'm like, great. Is it still using the Rift system though?
It seems like it is, because it does not. It seemed to very much be like it's the same system with like a few rule clarifications and some like cleaner language, but it's the same system. See, I respect Rifts. I respect it for what it is, but it's a terrifying system to actually play.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, because like it has a lot of cool stuff, and there are so many books that were made in the Rift system that there's just like a ton of stuff to pull upon. But again, it's not a fun system to play, and that kind of sucks.
I mean, it's very, very, very insane, like very, very like excited, very just unhinged 90s aspect of like, okay guys, it's the future, and also the apocalypse happened, and also there are like Canadian knights that use power armor with rail guns, and also people who put steroids into their brains, so now they have like psychic powers, but they only live to be like 7 years old because their brains are too strong. And it's like, this is basically Axe Cop, the tabletop game, except it's also involves a lot of math.
I had not put that together, but now that you said it, I can't unthink it.
I mean,
oh man,
am I wrong though?
No, you pretty much have the right of it. That's the thing that kills me. Oh, geez. No,
okay, so let me ask you a question then, because we can't just end it on us ragging on. So what's like your, out of all of your games, and I know you've played a lot, and I played a lot.
Yeah.
What is your favorite like mechanic or like quirk of a system that you are like, yes, this thing right here, this is really cool, really fun?
Oh, geez. There are so many good answers to that. I can think of a lot of stuff that I really, really like. And
you better not take mine, because I have one, and I'm like, I know you've played in a lot of our games, so...
if it's Exalted, no. The one I'm thinking of is something that Noodle taught me. In Mutants and Masterminds, I was trying to build basically not Green Lantern, but the way I made my lanterns, like the blues were the main characters. Same idea, though. And I was like trying really carefully to replicate the power ring while keeping it thematically consistent for the character. In Mutants and Masterminds, that's a very easy thing to do, by the way. And Noodle's like, oh, then you have an array. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And he's like, yeah, it's an arrayed ability because everything is tied to your bracelet. So the bracelet, it's a bracelet array of powers. And I'm like, okay, can you explain that to me? And he's explained it at least like 2 or 3 times. I still don't 100% know how it's calculated, but basically because it's the power comes from the bracelet. It's not something innate to my character. Because of that, it has drawbacks, which is that it's removable. Because of that, you actually get the benefit of a drawback, which is a weird thing to even say, is you get certain perks for having drawbacks to your powers. So you can make them higher ranks because there are drawbacks to those powers. And he basically calculated the array for me And it was like, okay, this is what your bracelet actually looks like. And he's like, I can never ever like begin to even say that you were trying to be like a min-maxer because you were really selling yourself like really, really short. And I'm like, oh, thank you for fixing that. And it's one of
And
those things that's basically just black magic to me.
Well, see, that's the problem, is that we were playing second edition. In third edition, they actually go into the actual like math, and it's basic arithmetic as to how you want to set up. But I mean, understandably also, though, I mean, the same thing is true of astrology and Exalted.
Yeah.
And it's weird that Noodle's like, it's literally just multiplication. Why is this considered like some strange form of magic? I mean, it is a strange form of magic, but it's not like the actual, like, the ability to create miracles through astrology. It's literally just how long you want it to be, the duration, and the scope. And that's it. And it basically gives you like, okay,
it's the calculator from Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah, and it's like, and you know, the community is like, oh my god, astrology is like black magic. It's like, it literally is third grade multiplication. It's not even going into 2 times tables. And, you know, to 2 digits. It's literally just, you know, 1 to 5, I want to say. It's not even up to 9 or, God forbid, you know, 10 or higher. So, but, you know, this was like, ooh, scary.
Dude, the raid in Final Fantasy XIV that requires basic arithmetic routinely ends in party wipes.
Yeah, no, I know. I know. Clockwork actually, you know, on several occasions got dinged with that. It's like, dude, really? You don't understand multiples?
This really is not difficult. It's not hard.
I'm not good at math. I'm not good at math.
Yeah,
like, you literally are. You are a computer science major. You know higher level math than I do. Or you ought to know higher level math than I do. Anyways,
so what about you, Ditaku? What's your go-to mechanic then?
See, if this was actually originally a house rule, and I am convinced that the 3rd edition devs of Exalted stole this from us, because it literally is in the 3rd edition core rulebook, and we had been doing this for years before that. But the introduce fact idea in Exalted is such a cool idea, and it is basically, it is like a way for a player to effectively like kind of take advantage of, basically like to kind of take leverage of the situation. To explain, like, effectively, it allows the person to effectively assert something and kind of retcon that, you know, assertion to be a thing. And in like really broad, very, you know, not like entirely mapped out settings like Exalted, this works really well, especially considering how like surreal a lot of just cultures and life, wildlife and stuff can just be. So you can just go, oh yes, you know, there's giant walking lizards that just, you know, will propagate smaller, you know, colonies of frogs on their backs to feed on later. You know, they're the gator buses.
Oh, you forgot the kegger.
Or the kegger, yeah.
The kegger who ate fruit and it would ferment in their stomach. And they were described as barrel-chested lizards who you could eat, and the contents of their stomach would cause the meat to become mildly alcoholic in nature.
And there's also the jagger later, which I forget what the difference between the kegger and the jagger was. I think the jagger is aquatic. And
it lived in the rivers. The keggers were desert dwelling, I believe.
Yes, that's right. And that was yeah. And so that was the entire thing, was basically it allowed the players to effectively like have fun and be like, oh yeah, this thing is around us. The problem being, though, is that if you fail your roll, because there's a small roll attached to it, then usually, at least the way I presented it, was that it wouldn't fail or like, oh no, that's dumb, but it wouldn't be exactly the way that the player would want. So, oh yes, the kegger would be a thing, but the meat might be like highly toxic.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're like, oh man, this is really good, but no, type of thing.
Need Pepto-Bismol.
Yes. So that's the way I always did it, and it's kind of the reason why actually Pugums are the way they are, is that they're not really like going to like be malicious, but they're definitely going to make your life interesting.
Yeah, they're mischievous.
Yes. And that's probably why no one else will ever really be able to do them justice, unfortunately.
Yeah. One of these days, I'll play a Pugum Rogue just to show people how it's done.
Okay.
I'm going to steal all the left Twix. Not the right ones, just the left ones.
There's going to be like a bounty hunter out for you from, the Candyman.
Yes.
King Candy sends his regards.
Oh no. It's the Popo. I can't do another nickel.
Well, so yeah, that's yes. That's my favorite, and because partially as a GM, it's like, oh, thank God, my players actually have a little bit more, desire to be invested in the game, and also because as a player, it's just a really fun little tool that you can use in order to, if you want to do something, or if you just kind of have that the last moment, aha, here's a way I can get around whatever the GM is trying to concoct for us. And usually this will inevitably, I mean, this always kind of happens. It ends in a lensman's arms race of the GM cooking up something ridiculous, the players cooking up something ridiculous, and it just kind of gets out of hand. But that's where the fun is.
It's such a fun mechanic that I basically house ruled it into our Shadowrun game. So, yeah.
Yeah, it ultimately really isn't like entirely dependent on Exalted. I think it works best for Exalted, though, because it's not like a hugely nailed down system, or not system, but a setting.
Yeah, the world is
Like,
deliberately couched in vagary.
Yeah, so for instance, like you couldn't really have it, for instance, in maybe like the like a DC universe version of like Mutants and Masterminds or something like that.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh yes, there's only 7 whole Kryptonians.
That kind of rule might need to exist, though.
Yeah. So. Oh, we're doing a Silver Age game then. Very fast and loose things.
Yeah. Anything goes. And there's a gorilla on every cover.
But you see, my villain is Grant Morrison, man. He's going to make your comic completely unintelligible.
Oh no!
And his friend Alan Moore, man, who's he lives in the trees and he hates Margaret Thatcher
really, really badly. Yes. Oh man. All right. So, how about, in order to close out this episode, we prattle off a few recommendations, and that way the folks at home can have a hunt around for some of these books.
Nobilis. Nobilis is great. The 3rd edition, which is, I want to say, the latest edition, is kind of hard to come by and has some pretty lulzy, like, deviant art tier art. That being said, it is probably the most coherent and cogent of the editions. What else? I really like any of the Fantasy Flight Games books, honestly.
Right.
Their D100 system is really, really great. And their critical tables are awesome because you get just like, oh no, I was shot in the arm. Oh no, my bones explode. Stuff like that.
The one I would throw out there is Anemon Story. I have yet to get a game off the ground. It's kind of my Dungeons the Dragoning in that respect. But it's specifically designed for people who love monster taming games. And if you want to do a monster taming game that doesn't have any kind of fan lore or fan works behind it, it is a great substitute. And even then, you can make your own original monsters. It's pretty great.
Oh, so you're saying we could do Natsudamon then?
Yeah, we could basically do Natsudamon, yes. I actually had ideas for how to do a Monster Rancher tabletop. I don't think it would even be that hard.
So then you have to do a lot of math. I don't know about this, guys.
No, I thought of some ways that could simplify it. I'm not going to bog down this episode with it, but maybe I'll go into my theory crafting on that sometime.
Then you have to do a lot of math. Oh, but what if I play it? What if I have a golden peach? Oh, crap. Hold on. I'm going to have to do more math.
Oh, boy. And another one I'll put out there.
Is this Fimbo or Agima? This is going to determine.
This is going to change a lot of stuff. I mean, technically, the lifespans would be quite different.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I'll put out there, another good one in that same vein, is Monsters and Other Childish Things.
Oh, that's a good one, too.
It has this, like, it's one part comedy, one part horror. And the whole idea is, like, in this world, children have their guardians who are the monsters who live in the dark. And until you're like 10 or something, you get your own monster who watches over you. And the whole thing is, like, the world is basically full of cryptids and demons and all this other crazy stuff. And it's these monsters who protect the children from these otherworldly horrors. And it's what would happen if Tim Burton made a monster taming game, basically.
Yeah. I want to say the favorite one I saw was one of the examples that they give you, which is this little boy who suddenly has this very attractive stepmom who is like perfect for his dad. You know, his dad's happy. You know, he actually has a mom again because his mom passed away. It's just that his mom suddenly, whenever his dad's not around, turns into this like gelatinous monster that no longer actually has. She's basically no longer like human shaped. She's just kind of a human suggestion, and she'll just gain and lose limbs at whatever she needs them, and she's really good at housework. But, she's like, I don't know if I should tell my dad about this or not. She's like, I got like this, Shoggoth as my stepmom.
That is pretty good.
Yeah.
And another one that Dutako and I were talking about earlier today is Legend of the Five Rings.
Yes.
You want to be a samurai? You want to bust out your 10,000 times folded Nakamer steel katana? That's the system for you. You can basically do Dynasty Warriors, the tabletop, right there.
It's not really Dynasty Warriors, the tabletop. It's more of
right. That'd be more like Legend of the Wulin.
Yeah, Legends of the Wulin would be more Dynasty Warriors. It's more Dishonorable, Display.
Right, that's like Samurai Warriors.
Yeah, it's more. Yeah, it's literally. As I recall, you can actually defeat someone by disgracing them in court etiquette.
Yes,
just like you are.
Great.
It's like you are not. You are being dishonorable and disgracing your ancestors. Leave now in shame. Oh man.
And then they have to. Yeah, you actually get to break their willpower the same way you would reduce their HP. But you are just such a good performer in the great courts that it just breaks their spirit, and they're just like, "Oh, I am defeated now."
Or you could just be a scorpion and just be like, I don't play by your rules, and they're like, "No, wait, no, you can't do that."
No, the scorpions can actually.
Also, all of our women incredibly attractive. This is a rule, by the way.
Yeah, that's actually a thing. He's not making that one up.
Yep. The problem is everyone hates you, but so, having incredibly attractive moms, sisters, and cousins that you can, leverage for, political gain is just kind of the consolation prize you have.
Yep.
So, uh-oh.
Hmm?
The doodle is army crawling over to me. I think he's hungry.
All right. Well, unless you have any last-minute suggestions you want to throw out there, we can just wrap today up.
I mean, apart from Dungeons Dragoning, but I think I've already talked about that.
Yeah, no, you have. But it is good. It is a fantastic book.
Yeah, so,
thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we hope that our tabletop stories may have inspired you to investigate this underappreciated medium. So thank you, Ditaku-san, for joining me today.
My pleasure.
And this has been the Tomodachi Bros for the Tomodachi Bros podcast. And we will see you next time.
This podcast has much honor.
Thank you for listening to the Tomodachi Brothers Review Podcast, produced and recorded by the Hipster Snack, Ditaku, and Cog. Sound design and editing by executive producer Sean Taylor Brown with Cog Sound Engineering. Music written and performed by Sean Taylor Brown with Costas Vaz of Core Insight Studio on the drums. We hope you enjoyed this episode. See you next time.